Many think we go out of existence when we die, but they really do not know. Some think there is an existence beyond death, but most are not very confident in this belief. However, in the case of another existence following our bodily demise, a person can know what is next with certainty. The world has been on a path of rejecting God for a very long time, and now, except for an outward appearance, the subject is largely closed. Indeed, quite a few go to their churches, but most have their doubts. Typically, people remain hopeful, but are a very long distance from certainty. You can tell this among religious persons by their unwillingness to discuss God. Is there anything that can be said to move a person to the truth they need about God and the next life? Well, that would be hard, since few are open to listening or reading anything of these matters. People are intimately tied to the world, and that is a huge day in and day out distraction. Also, whatever their beliefs, very few would be open to something different. That might mean they are wrong about cherished beliefs. I must say most people seem satisfied to die, and come what may. This is the most important thing in life, really the only important thing. However, minds are closed. There is a general myopia, a very short-term view. It may only involve days from now and maybe years for certain goals like marriage, children, a home, travel, and others, but primarily a few days or a week from now. That only changes if you have the truth, because life is about the soul, about what follows death. That existence is determined by how you live. This is likely a highly unacceptable belief, since few seriously include God in their lives, and thus are unaware of what God has revealed about himself in the Scriptures. At a high level, let me suggest some reasons to consider some things that suggest a more supernatural world. Our current existence is very physical, with many things in this material realm being largely understood. We have certain senses, certain patterns like the sun rising and setting, certain needs for survival, and even certain understandings of death. There can be comfort in the patterns that surround us. We even delve into understanding things that seem beyond understanding, like the whys of our existence. We, of course, with human ingenuity, find answers that seem like logical possibilities, but no real evidence. So, everyone is happy if there is a reasonable answer that does not require God. Answers that are agreeable with what we want can always be acceptable. Let me propose some things that point to God's existence, and also another existence for each person after their bodily demise. One thing might be that the uncertainty of what follows death, even when there are various explanations, is not very satisfying. There is little or no certainty, and humankind doubts the scientific explanations. You can often see this when an atheist says, "Well, just in case there is a God and another life, I live in the following way." That is, I remain open-minded to the possibility of God. Even in the world of science that is largely atheist, there is a movement towards a belief in God, as nothing else truly answers all the questions. In fact, scientists in general do not seek evidence for God, but are dedicated to showing there is no God. Unfortunately, their no-God theories for existence, often accepted by those seeking a no-God answer, provide no meaningful evidence for their theories. Also, statistical analysis of the probabilities of existence, as described by our scientists, always concludes the defined processes to be mathematically impossible. Moreover, the theory of organic evolution is the key belief of the Atheist Manifesto, and it has become exceedingly problematic. The book by this author, God, Essentials for Sharing in the Divine Nature, discusses the points just made in relation to God and our existence. It also suggests something that is entirely overlooked by science, that is very likely the truth in relation to the inanimate and the living world. This suggested truth destroys all the current scientific theories while being logical. Namely, the ability of God to create is incomprehensible to humankind, and thus they cannot know the how of creation, as it is outside the science God created for humankind. Also, the Genesis creation account is perfectly precise in its description. Humankind, with its science built in by God, including its designed-in limitations, is exceedingly primitive compared to God's capabilities. The things of God are easily understood, no complicated science required. Here is an example. Romans 1 verse 20. For since the creation of the world his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. God is not complicating his existence, but simply says he is seen, albeit invisible in the things that are made. It is not enough for science, but for the everyday man or woman it makes perfect sense. The complementary part of this is to understand that God is the God of the Bible. In this regard, God provides that which is perfect, the completed Word of God. Those who honor God by respecting His Word will have evidence that answers the question, which God made everything. Let us continue to consider the obviousness of God and what life is all about. Indeed, God is knowable and most valuable to know. God is the master of time and much more. For God, time is a tool He created as an integral part of achieving His purpose. Time can be thought of in many ways like being a scorekeeper, like a framework for humankind, like providing a means of interacting with humankind in His communications, and as a starting and end point. Very versatile. There are many compelling things observable in our life and experiences that lead to a single conclusion, that God exists, and that He is the God of the Bible. That which is perfect, the completed Word of God, is filled with the wisdom of God, filled with perfection designed to achieve His purpose. God talks about events in the future, and everyone has come to pass. Just one prophesied event remains, and it will happen on the last day. When you look at these events, they are unique and all meaningful to God achieving His purpose. The most significant ones were the promises of God in the Garden of Eden, and the promise to Abraham, both fulfilled in their time. Many of the other prophecies were associated with these two promises, which is a powerful sign of their authenticity. Non-existence following your death is a conclusion reached with some motive. It is a needed alternative, something other than God. The only truly viable God is the God of the Bible. That God can be distressing to be feared. A God with rules, a God with accountability. The God of the Bible provides a terribly believable account of Himself and life. Everything fits perfectly together, is logical in view of God's purpose. The problem is few look diligently seeking God, seeking the truth. Indeed, you will not see God when your goal is to find evidence that He does not exist. There is only one important thing in life, and is to establish a relationship with God. Nothing else matters. God's test is perfect in getting the right persons to share His divine nature. Your good choices will allow you to be successful. Perhaps the strangest thing is how you have a communication with God, and you reject it in all its perfection. On the other hand, you have hundreds of different concepts from humankind explaining our existence, often ending in non-existence, and this is found to be acceptable. These often far-fetched, nonsensical ideas are accepted. It is not because they make sense because they do not, but because they are something different than the God of the Bible, which for various reasons is not acceptable to you. Actually, this very process to accept humankind's answer to our existence is part of God's plan that assures those with unacceptable characteristics will not be successful. Indeed, a perfect test. One of the clearest statements in relation to God's existence is to say, "So you believe this all just happened with no intelligence? Intelligence from non-intelligence. Matter came from no matter. Life came from non-life." It is quite incredible how silly humankind can be to get what they want, and even more ridiculous when they are successful in getting others to believe their philosophies. They celebrate momentarily. Then they eventually end up losing the only thing important in their life, their eternal soul. This is so very ironic, so very regrettable. If you have little correct knowledge of God, or maybe a great deal of false information about God, then much of the truth about God might seem overwhelming. Here are 6 books to help you through the confusion that comes under the title of religion. There is a tendency to judge the things we learn by the source. That makes some sense, but with hundreds of respected known authors, speakers, and often with impressive credentials, yet teaching many different things, it is likely our judgment of the person would seem to be impossible. Which of these special persons is carrying the truth? Very possibly none of them. The standard of measure is the Word of God. So the Word of God is the only way to sort good from evil, the truth from lies. God is speaking to you, not some person.